Welcome to episode 9 of the Stitching Geek podcast. My name is Mallory, aka the Stitching Geek, and I'm coming to you today from outside of Portland, Oregon. In today's episode, we have some updates on some languishing whips, as well as a review. So let's get to it. Big news, guys. I finally did it. I finally worked on the Harvest cardigan. Yay! I'm so proud of myself. After last week's haunting, I thought I should at least get some progress done. And would you believe it? After episodes and episodes of thinking I was going to separate for the sleeves, I finally did it. I finally separated for the sleeves. So let's take a look at this baby, shall we? I'm getting to the end of a ball, so it's kind of a mess at the moment. But I'll do kind of like an overview look here, so you can kind of see where I'm at. So as you can see, it's starting to look like a sweater. Kind of when it's not being tangly. So it's starting to look like a sweater. I've got the sleeves on hold here with this lovely Oink Pigments yarn. And my progress keeper, I've gotten a couple rows done. So I consider this success. I was going to consider this success as long as I got a stitch on here, but separating for the sleeves and finishing a couple rows, call that a win. So that is the Harvest cardigan by Tin Can Knits. I'm knitting it out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Worsted, which is a 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it's in the colorway Baltic Heather. And I'm actually really pleased with it. I kind of sort of tried it on with the needle still. Have it on 2 super long cables, and I think it's gonna fit, which I wasn't 100% sure. Like, I felt like I was kind of doing this in the dark, but I am feeling pretty good about it. Luckily, it's been pretty cool this week, so I've been able to get more knitting done than usual, so I'm pretty pleased with it. And so yeah, I was really excited to get past the separating for the sleeves, because then I thought at that point I would just be able to zoom down the body. Turns out there's more neckline shaping, so I still have to do some increases. So eventually, I think I'll be able to zoom down the body. I maybe should have done the flax pullover as my first one for myself, but I feel like I'm going to get more use out of a cardigan. So I think the extra effort of having to purl and having to do this neckline shaping is actually going to be worth it in the end. But right now it's just kind of like, I still have to pay attention. I want to get to the point where I don't have to pay as much attention. And yeah, so that's where I'm at with that one. Speaking of the flax sweater, I still am working on that baby sweater. So let's take a look here and see where we are. I didn't put a progress keeper in this one because I don't think I was super far the last time I showed you. But as you can see, I've separated for these sleeves and I'm zooming down the body. All it is right now is just knitting in the round. I don't have to worry about the garter stitch panel on the sleeves yet. I don't have to worry about increases or decreases. It's just zoom knitting at this point. Just whoosh, pick it up and go. This is Flax, also by Tin Can Knits. I'm knitting this one out of Cascade 220 Superwash in the colorway, let me check, because I have some right here. In the colorway 1947. It is this lovely purple that has kind of got some pinks in there and things. I don't know if you can really see. There we go. So that's going super well. I'm knitting it in like the 3rd smallest size. Not for anybody in particular. I've just kind of been inspired by different podcasts, knitting podcasts that have been doing kind of baby knits and just having a pile of baby knits around. And it felt like a little bit more instant gratification sweater-wise than the Harvest cardigan. In fact, the podcast I've been watching the most that's been doing baby knits and flaxes specifically has been the Stranded podcast, which I will link down below because it's great. They've been around forever. Newer to me, but I've really been enjoying it. And then I've also been, it's kind of a work in progress and it's kind of a finished object and kind of an on the horizon. I don't know really where this project should lay, but I have been working on some mitered squares because I have a lot of leftover yarn from projects long past. And I thought it'd be fun just to kind of have something small and simple to work on, like when I'm in a meeting at work, or if I'm just watching something, on TV and I don't want to have to pay attention. And I didn't really feel like casting on a hat. So I was like, okay, a mitered square blanket would be pretty fun. So let's try this out. So the first thing I did was, let me pull this up, is first I thought I wanted to do something a little fancier than just a plain mitered square blanket. And so I was doing this sort of lace eyelet option, and it's lovely and I like it. It's just a little more work than I wanted to put into this particular project. I'm not going to like toss this or anything. One, I think it'd make it actually a really good coaster. And two, you know, I might eventually do one of these later, but I was just kind of like, you know, a little more work than I was hoping to do. So what I have been doing is just like a simple mitered, you know, mitered squares. You can find a pattern recipe anywhere kind of on the internet. I think I did an old Craftsy one, but I've got a couple. I've got this guy, and this one is one of the few I remember what the actual yarn is. This was Lorna's Lace's Shenanigans, and I think it was just their sock yarn, whatever that is called, Soulmate maybe, in the Shenanigans colorway. I don't know if that's still available. This is old yarn. And then I've got this one, which I believe was the electric Kool-Aid in the Socks That Rock electric Kool-Aid. I call it gnome barf. So, because if you've ever, I have some fingerless gloves I knit out of this. And it looks like in Gravity Falls when the gnome is barfing a rainbow. That's what it looks like to me. And then finally, I think this is more Socks That Rock. It's like a mystery skein mill end kind of thing that I got at Oregon Flock and Fiber a few years ago. I used this for the warp on one of my first scarves on my loom. And I just had a little ball of it left over. In fact, I can show you. I have this much left over. So I thought I could make a couple mitered squares. This feels more DK weight than fingering weight like the rest. But it appears, I think with blocking and everything, it looks like it's going to match gauge and be the same size. So I'm not super concerned. If it doesn't fit in the blanket, oh well, it was good practice. And then I've been keeping them. Oh, and this one. I didn't realize I still had this one. I think this is also a Lorna's Laces. I don't remember the name of the colorway. I think it had jungle in it. But I always called it my Joker yarn because it looks like, you know, the Joker. So... and then I've been keeping them in this little pouch that I got at the mall the other day. My partner and I went to the mall because our water was turned off in our apartment, and we figured, you know, mall has bathrooms and restaurants and places to sit and places to charge our phones if we need to. So we went and wandered around the mall for a couple hours. But this was at a store called Fuego, and it's got this lovely little Dream Big, Be Unrealistic on here, which I thought was pretty funny. And this was on sale for 75% off. So it was like $3. And it's been working really well to hold these little squares. You can see it's like supposed to be a makeup bag, I think, because it's got this plasticky interior. But I've really been liking it. So that's been that. And then I've been keeping it in my Stitching Geek bag that I custom ordered. And I've been liking that. That's where I found all the sock yarn I wanted to use, and I just threw it in there, as well as a Tangled Pearls little project bag within a project bag for whichever one I'm working on at the moment. So if I would just want to take that somewhere, I can. And right now on here is some Mint Rain yarn. It's, I believe, Witch's Britches is what I think it's called. It's a Halloween one. I made a hat out of it last year. And I thought it would make some fun squares. You can see this is what it looks like balled up. And that's been fun. So I've just basically been I cast on 15 stitches, place a marker, cast on another 15 stitches, and then I just go and decrease every other row to make the square. And that's all I've been doing. And it's been a lot of fun. Just, you know, real quick knitting, real quick to get it done. So let's go ahead and move on to the horizon. There's a very good chance, despite all of my current works in progress, that I am going to cast on for a hat this week. I've really been getting the urge to cast on for a hat, and I still have that yarn caked up from when I was going to try the whirlwind hat, which still might be the hat I cast on. I'm also looking at maybe doing another bank head or possibly something else. I just haven't quite made my decision on what I want to do yet. I just... You know how some knitters are like sock knitters and that's just kind of what they have on the go all the time? I think for me, it's probably more, I would rather have a hat on the go. Nothing against socks. It's just I get more use out of hats. I don't really wear wool socks. So, you know, having hats around are great. And I always feel like they're a good, easy present to give somebody. Like, somebody may not understand, you know, the hard work that went into a pair of socks, but, you know, people understand and appreciate a hat. So I like just having hats on the go. I like having them around, and it's nice for when your ears are cold. So for acquisitions, I'm going to insert some footage here. My partner and I also went to IKEA. We've really been taking advantage of us both being fully vaccinated. We still social distance. We still have masks on. It still seems like the right thing to do. But we are fully vaccinated, and we went to IKEA yesterday, actually. So we went to IKEA yesterday and got a bunch of stuff, but I decided to get one of those ubiquitous pegboards that all the crafters seem to have, and hung it above my non-work desk. So I have my work desk, which is right over here, where I do my work from home stuff. And then I have what I call my fun desk over there, which is where I play my computer games and do non-work things. I find that work and home life, especially when I'm working from home and my job is work from home all the time, it's important to separate those two things and have a clear separation. So I got the pegboard. I've hung it above my desk, as you can see here. And then I hung up some yarn and some containers and stuff. And I wasn't sure what to do with that container on the right-hand side, at least when you're looking at it. But my partner grabbed my stuffed Tom Nook and plopped him in there, and it was perfect. So I really like it so far. I've had it up for maybe 4 hours. But I think it'll be fun to hang some of my prettier yarn up there just to have more of my interests around the apartment. So that's acquisitions. Okay, so today I'm finally going to be talking about the Knitter's Pride Mindful needles that I talked about getting back in episode 2. So with the mitered blanket I was talking about, I decided a good idea would be to use the Knitter's Pride Mindful needles to work on it. Basically, it's little, it gives me the opportunity to really test it out in a quick way. I think I used them to cast on that baby flax, but I can't remember. And it also would have been like maybe 10 rows. So I didn't feel like that was a fair way to review it. And these mitered squares have been really good at really testing it out. You know, I get to knit, there's some decreases so you can see how it like goes into 2 stitches at once. All that good stuff. There's flipping around a lot, so I can see how the swivel head works, everything. So I do have a bit of a review about it. So first I want to talk about the hand feel of it, which is probably the grossest way to talk about something like this, but maybe not. So the hand feel of it is good so far. I found, so my main other experience with interchangeable needles has been the Knit Picks interchangeable needle set that I got like almost 10 years ago now. So keep that in mind as I compare it to this, because they may have changed the formula for the needles, like the manufacturing may be different. It's been a long time. So the Knit Picks needles, and then also my ChowGoos, which are my ride or die. And I have the ChowGoo lace twist with the red cable, and they're really pointy and metal. And I love them. I love my ChowGoos. Like anything I review is going to be like held up against those ChowGoos because they are kiss of a chef to me. The Knitter's Pride needles here, these mindful ones, so far have been good. Like nothing feels uncomfortable about them. I found that with the Knit Picks needles after a while, like after I'd switched to the ChowGoos and I tried going back to the Knit Picks needles, I found them to feel almost tarnished, if that makes sense. Like they aren't necessarily tarnished and they aren't bad. It just, they feel rough. It's like, you know, sometimes you could be really sensitive to the difference between like a merino wool and an acrylic where it feels squeaky and it feels artificial. That's kind of how the Knit Picks interchangeable needles feel to me now. And again, it might have just been a bad batch. Their manufacturing may have changed. I bought these over 10 years ago, but compared to the ChowGoo, it just doesn't feel as smooth and the yarn doesn't slip off as nice. Granted, with certain fibers, that's probably a benefit, but that's kind of the thing. I'm not getting that with the Knitter's Pride. I don't think they necessarily feel as good as the ChowGoos, but I'm not running into the issue that I had with the Knit Picks needles. So then also there's the cable. It is that kind of teal cable. The interesting thing about the cable there is that they have like 1-inch marks on it, which feels like it could be useful for somebody. I mean, ultimately I'm still going to use measuring tape, but it's a neat idea. But the cable feels good. It doesn't like hold it, you know, it's flexible. It doesn't get stuck in any shape kind of thing. I've had no real issue with it. The odd thing about the cable is that it says it's a 16-inch cable. That's what's printed on the cable itself, and that's what I theoretically purchased. However, when I measure it from like metal end to metal end, not including the tips, it only comes up to 9.5 inches. Like I put it up against the 14-inch cable for the Chow Goose, and it was way shorter than the 14-inch cable. When I do put the needles on, because I know some cables, like it's from tip to tip, like with the needles on, it comes out to like 18 inches. So it doesn't really make sense to me, like where they got that measurement from. I did actually reach out to Knitter's Pride to be like, hey, this cable is weird, but I haven't heard back. So just be mindful of that. Like definitely, if you can, take a look at the cable outside of the package, or just know that they might run short. And like with the Chow Goose, it's like the end to end from the metal bits, like it's 14 inches when I measured the 14 inches. Like I was like, okay, let's try to compare apples to apples here. So not 16 inches. So I've been having some trouble with that just because like the cord isn't quite long enough. But that's on me for what I purchased, but also kind of on them for what it says for the cord length. So it's just odd. So just be aware of that. And also another odd thing I found about these needles is the tips themselves. I feel like one of the tips is actually blunter than the other. Like one has a really nice sharp tip, but the other one seems to be blunter. And again, it might have just been a bit of bad luck, or it might just be in my head. When I emailed them about the cable, I also emailed them about the tips, but I haven't heard back. I don't want my money back or anything like that. Like they're usable and it's fine. It just seemed a little odd. And since I'm doing a review, I wanted to be forthright about it in case anybody else has run into this. I'm curious to know if it was just me getting a bad batch or what. But that being said, the main feature of these Mindful needles is that swivel head, right? So it has a head on there. When you screw it into the needle tip, it swivels instead of like the cord getting kinked up, and that has been really cool. It seems to work the way it's promoted as working. Especially since I've been doing back and forth knitting as opposed to knitting in the round with the mitered squares. And I really like how it just kind of flips over. I don't have to like untangle the cord or anything like that. So that's a huge plus. So all in all, I like them. I probably would get more of them in the future. I'm interested to see other things that will just come with more use. Like the Chow Goose, they have the size of the needle printed on the needle itself, which I really like because I don't want to go find a needle gauge every time. It's super helpful. But I'm interested to see if that's going to wear off or anything like that as I continue to knit with it. So I'll keep you guys posted if there's any update on that. But that is Knitter's Pride Mindful. I bought them with my own money, and overall I like them fine. I wouldn't say no if I needed needles sometime to buying them. I'm probably going to stick with my Chow Goose for now, but it's nice to have that other option, especially when it comes to that cool swivel head. So if you've been thinking about trying it, doesn't hurt to try them. I wouldn't pick up a whole interchangeable set until you try one of like an interchangeable needle, like just buy one and see if you like it. But so far so good. So just keep those things in mind. Okay, and that's it for the stitching section. So let's move on to the geek section. So I don't actually have much for the geek section this week. Since I've been doing more knitting, there's less time for geek things. I don't even have anything written in my notes. I don't know if you guys know, but down here, I have my tablet with my notes on it of like my project information and what I want to talk about every week or every podcast. So this week, or these last 2 weeks, mostly what I've been doing is I've been playing some modded Minecraft, which has been fun. Basically, I've been doing Sky Factory, which is you start on one block in the sky and you build out from there using mods in Minecraft. So that's been a ton of fun. I've been taking care of the fish. That's been going really well. My plants have been propagating like crazy, which is really exciting because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. And, free plants. That's pretty cool. And yeah, I think one of the guppies is going to give birth probably next week based on my estimates. So I will update you guys on that. But yeah, that's other than, getting out of the house a little bit and playing video games. There hasn't been much geek stuff here. I did want to mention that from a couple episodes ago when I talked about the Cozy Knitting Mysteries, Regan Davis has released book number 9 since we talked then, and I've been working through that. I haven't finished it yet, but it's good so far. So just if you were interested in that series, there's that one just came out, and then book number 10 is coming out soon, I believe. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that is basically it for this week's Stitching Geek podcast. So that's been episode 9 of the Stitching Geek podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.